Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Nicholas Kristof of the New York Times and our esteemed panel.
Thank you all for coming. We're delighted to have this session on water, women, the world, how to improve the lot of all three. We have a terrific panel here. Let me introduce him. We have Bethany Caruso, professor of public health and gender expert at Rollins School of Public Health at Emory University. Greg Allgood, the VP of Water for World Vision, as you know, one of the largest development and humanitarian organizations around. And Sherrie Westin, who is the CEO of Sesame Workshop. And it may seem a little counterintuitive, but Sherrie, I have been on so many panels with you talking about these kinds of issues. And so the reason we're raising these issues, I think, is threefold. Now, first, look, we're behind in the Sustainable Development Goals. It's clear that, frankly, we're probably not going to meet them. And I think it's become clear that if we want to do a better job on everything from child mortality to education, that we've got to do a better job empowering women and improving their situation. I think another is security. That do-gooders, look, a hand-wringing New York Times columnist doesn't get so much attention on these issues, but when American generals talk about the importance of empowering girls and getting more girls into school, freeing their time, because that will mean fewer US troops shot, that does get attention. This is a security issue as well. And finally, there's just a issue of fairness and equality in life and death. Are there more males or females in the world today? Come on, you guys are a shy audience. There are more males or females in the world today? Who thinks there are more males in the world today? Raise your hand. Who thinks there are more females in the world today? The first group was actually right. We think there are more females in the world today because, given equal access to food and health care, women live longer. In an equitable world, there would be more females. This is not an equitable world. It's one where discrimination is often lethal. And as a result, worldwide, there are actually more males than females. And that is a reflection of the stakes of what we're talking about. So Greg, let me start with you. I'm actually just back from Chad and Sudan, and on a previous trip, I visited World Vision's programs, including WASH in Chad. Tell me, and you're working with both both Emory and with Sesame Workshop on these issues. Tell me what your vision is of how we deal with water and at the same time empower women.
I'm glad to, Nick, and thank you for moderating this panel. Thank you for that article that you did in the Chad border with Sudan refugees. You've had a lifetime of shining the spotlight on the marginalized, and it's making a difference, so thank you for that. And yeah, we're very proud to partner with Bethany at Emory and Sherrie at Sesame Workshop. Today, we're announcing a new initiative. It's an expansion of a program that we call Strong Women, Strong World Beyond Access. And what it does, it really puts women and girls at the center of our developmental model. We did this first in Kenya, Zimbabwe, Honduras, and Guatemala. And now we're expanding it to an additional 11 countries. We're going to reach 200,000 women. If you consider the average family size, that means more than 1 million people are going to be empowered and lifted out of poverty through this work. It's going to require $30 million over 5 years. Let me tell you what it is. It's three things. First, it's providing water access for people that don't have nearby water access to eliminate that long walk for water that women and girls do. As you saw, Nick, World Vision has long been a leader in providing clean water access. We actually reach one new person with clean water every 10 seconds. And we work with communities to make sure, to make sure that the water continues to flow long after we left. So that's one, water access. Second is economic empowerment. World Vision has a proven model of improving livelihoods that's been shown to significantly increase household incomes. We organize people into savings groups. Most of them are women. We teach them business skills. And then we bring in microloans through World Vision's microfinance institution called Vision Fund. The third piece of the puzzle, the final piece, is changing the family dynamics by shifting power in the family. It's not to diminish anyone, but we know that instead of having decisions made only by males, if we can also have females be part of that decision, then if it looks like this with males and females, we're able to rise up everyone and empower the entire family and lift people out of poverty sustainably. So that's what Strong Woman, Strong World is. And here's the bottom line. We think it's speeding up our development efforts in lifting people out of extreme poverty.
And Greg, you alluded to this, but what is the benefit of having, it's always girls who go fetch water. It's typically a thing girls do, not boys. So what is the larger benefit of saving girls time so that they're not spending hours each day getting water?
Time and energy. And Bethany, I've been encouraging the World Health Organization, the Joint Monitoring Program, to get gender segregated data. And for the first time, they've done that on time hauling water. You'll not be surprised that women and girls spend a lot more time hauling water than men and boys do. But they've also been able to calculate the millions of hours a day in sub-Saharan Africa. The new report from the WHO shows that women and girls every day spend a cumulative 200 million hours in sub-Saharan Africa, 200 million hours a day. So there's no time to do things like improve your livelihoods when you're spending that much time hauling water.
Or go to school.
Or go to school, I was going to say.
Yeah. So Sherrie, it may seem natural, people may not be surprised to have a public health expert here, head of an NGO. What is the role of Sesame Workshop here? You guys are a renowned informal educator of people worldwide. What is your role here in this?
Well, we were talking backstage. It does seem a little bit odd that you have Sesame Street and menstrual hygiene, but I'll tell you how that came about. And as you know, we do, most people know Sesame Street. Sometimes they don't realize the work we do all over the globe, reaching some of the most marginalized children. And not just through broadcast, but through every means possible, digital, WhatsApp, high-tech, low-tech. But I think when we have the greatest impact, it's when we partner with organizations like World Vision. We create proven educational content, but we're not a direct service provider, we're not on the ground. And when we're combining these resources with these incredible programs, so if I may, we started a program years ago that Gates funded for India, Bangladesh, and Nigeria to address WASH. We know that it's one of the biggest problems for children is these diseases through, lack of clean water, sanitation, hygiene. And when you think of Sesame and Muppets, you might think of teaching letters and numbers, but these are powerful role models, and we teach behavior change and opening hearts and minds, attitudes. So we created a Muppet named Raya. She's our global health ambassador. She's a beautiful little green girl with braids, and she is teaching hygiene, and she is, like Sesame is so sort of, I think, uniquely qualified to do, we can talk about things that are otherwise taboo, like the latrine, wearing your sandals to the latrine, washing your hands with clean water. And we were so successful, did a lot of research on the behavior change through this program, WASH, with Raya, and then we started partnering with World Vision. So it allowed us to leverage that original investment from Gates, reaching children with this content in 14 countries now, I think. And we also know from our data, we're not just reaching preschoolers, we're reaching older siblings and the parents and caregivers, which really allows us to measure behavior change as a catalyst for the whole family. And because we've always focused on gender equity, girls' education, reaching children, all children, boys and girls, but so often girls are disproportionately left behind. So when we realized we were reaching older siblings and menstrual hygiene as a part of WASH is such a barrier, that's one of the major reasons girls drop out of school. And so we thought, wait a minute, if we were already reaching these siblings with Raya, let's create an older sister for Raya. So we have Dee Dee, and let's start teaching about menstrual hygiene, help to, again, a taboo subject, helping boys and girls understand, be able to talk about it in school and at home. And it's been incredibly impactful in Zimbabwe, and now we're expanding to several other countries in Latin America and Africa. And I think it's a place that Sesame is uniquely able to reach both children and adults with really life-changing messages.
Life-changing messages because you guys have the expertise that you localize, but let's face it, everybody loves the Muppets, and so you go to a higher level than education and fun. It's like love. You're bringing love into it.
And appealing to adults as well as children. I think that's one of our great assets.
People trust the Muppets.
Yeah, yeah.
I've always thought that we are weakest in developing public policy on issues that are hard to talk about, that are taboo. And you, by raising these difficult issues on the screen, I think you help break that and develop better policy. I also got to say that, look, frankly, those of us in print journalism, the newspaper world, we tend to have our noses in the air about television and yet I was really humbled once by a study in India about behavior change, and it found that exposure to television was basically the single thing that empowered women more than just about anything else, and it was very humbling for this print guy, and so bravo to you for your role in that. Bethany, you you live in the data of this world and empowering women. Let me pick up on the thread of menstrual hygiene, since we were just talking about that. I have the sense that there was a lot of excitement maybe a dozen years ago about how giving girls hygiene products was suddenly going to get them in school and everything was going to be nice and easy, and that it actually turned out to be more complicated than we'd expected, a little like clean cook stoves, that there was a real rush of excitement about that, and then it turned out to be more complicated. And so, is that true? And how do we think about a world in which things always prove to be more nuanced or complicated than we had hoped, and yet they still have tremendous value?
Yeah, I think there's always a danger in thinking about a silver bullet for something. The idea of pads coming in and being this thing that can be just handed out to girls, they need something. Women need something. But it's never been enough. They need also more water. They need a place to change in privacy and in safety and with dignity. They need disposal. These are all things. What's interesting to me is that WASH has been the sector to take this on. But this is a women's health issue. This is a sexual and reproductive health issue. This is an adolescent health issue. It is cross-cutting, and it is certainly an empowerment issue, because if girls know how to take care of their body and feel confident in doing so, and have the social environment without stigma and the physical environment with the resources they need, then future choices in their lives about their body they can know how to do it. They can say, I've learned from the beginning of how to do this. So to your question, did this fade away? Is it no longer a big deal? It's always been more nuanced. It didn't come out that it was more nuanced. The challenge is when people thought it was simple. Yeah.
As a farm boy from Oregon, my silver bullet metaphor is that too often we think of silver bullets, but what we actually want is silver buckshot. So
That's good.
I do not own intellectual property to that. You're welcome to steal it. So tell us a little bit about what the data say in terms of empowering women and girls. What goals are we missing? What is the low-hanging fruit? If you inherit $1 billion tomorrow from your grandmother and you can allocate it toward empowering women and girls, where would you put it? I'm curious.
That's a really good question. I think, what a lot of people might not know, people might know about SDG 5, which is focused on equity and empowerment of women and girls, but not everybody reads the preamble of the SDGs, and specifically all of the goals are supposed to be for achieving gender equality and empowerment. They are supposed to cut across every single one. So they should be everywhere. We have gaps in close to half of them, according to UN Women. I think, I have my own bias because I'm a WASH person, but I think that the WASH-related ones are fundamental, because water, sanitation, and hygiene are important for everybody to survive, to thrive, and live life with dignity. If we have to spend our time, if women have to spend all of those hours, what part of their life are they spending time doing, and what other opportunities are they missing out? They need water, but they need water for menstruation. They need to be able to have agency over how they spend their time. They need sanitation with privacy and safety. Those are aspects of empowerment. So I think that's really critical, because if they can't live in an environment that enables them to feel safety and also get their human needs in order to thrive, then we have a long way to go. And I think what's really critical is that in the past, we have been seeing water and sanitation as a goal. We need to flip that script, and which is what I think that World Vision is doing with Strong Women, Strong World, which is seeing water and sanitation as the pathway, as the lever to gender equality and empowerment. That is the goal. The vehicle is WASH.
Let me tell you a story about how to make this come to life. And it starts with that, what Bethany said, but also this enormous amount of time and energy that's spent hauling water. And Bethany and I, World Vision and Emory University, were, how can we shine a spotlight on this? And we're talking about it, and one of us probably checked our smartwatch, and we said, what if we put smartwatches on women in the areas, the 4 countries we're doing Strong Women, Strong World, and look at how many steps and how many calories and how many miles they're going? Maybe that would allow us to break through to people in America so they can relate to it. So we did that. And we had some amazing results that Bethany will publish and talk about later. But I wanted to go back and experience with my colleagues the place where people had to walk the longest. So we went to the Samburu people in Kenya. They were walking about 10 miles. They walked through a forest. One of the women showed us her scars from where an elephant attacked her. And then we walked up a mountain, and I live in Boulder, Colorado, Nick. I like to hike like you do, but this was a very steep climb. In fact, it was harder than when I summited Mount Kilimanjaro. Then we hiked down the backside of that mountain. Then they dug into a dry riverbed because even though there was a lot of sand, there was rock on the bottom and it could collect water. Then they had to carry the water back. They each had 20 liters. They strapped 20 liters around their forehead with a rope. That's 44 pounds. They each dragged another 20 liters, another 44 pounds behind them. But what struck me the most wasn't the physical challenge. They told us that the mental toil of having to do that every day of their lives and to leave some of their children behind. When their kids were little, they would strap them to their front or their back. And the fear that bad men would lay in wait for them because they knew the exact path that they would have to take every day. That stress was worse than the physical burden of carrying the water. So that's what we're about eliminating. And we have in this community, they have clean water right there. So we've done economic empowerment, we've done the mindset change, and things are completely different for these people, and development has really increased.
Bravo.
Should be clapping.
Yeah. Yeah, if one had to hike 10 miles for water each way, boy, I think one would not take many showers. I mean, it would be such an obstacle to every aspect of daily life. Sherrie, so how did you happen to partner with World Vision on this project? Why? How do you choose partners with Sesame? How do you think about extending your reach in the developing world?
Well, again, as I mentioned before, we really are experts at creating content to use media to reach. And you can use media to reach children in places where they may not have access to formal education, to school. And don't think of it anymore as just television, right? Because as I said, it'll be WhatsApp, it'll be print materials, it'll be digital, it'll be storybooks. Like we figure out what is the means to reach children in that particular community and how. But I think the most important thing, we've partnered with World Vision, we've partnered with the International Rescue Committee, with Save the Children, a number of great organizations. But when we have these tools, and we know an organization has shared values, has real commitment to reaching young children, which is our audience, and the caregivers and families surrounding them, and has the kind of experience and dedication on the ground that World Vision has. I mean, just the kind of program he was just describing, what World Vision has done in these communities is incredible. And I think it's about hardware and software. They need clean water, but they need to understand why you wear your sandals to the latrine, why you wash your hands with soap and water, all the things that allow you to have behavior change to improve adults. And we've found that's an area we really can make a difference. And the other thing I would just say in terms of investing in reaching younger children with any of these programs, we find improves long-term outcomes. And so I think we can enhance each other's impact. I said at Sesame, you wouldn't say 1 + 1 = 3, but it does.
Yeah.
Well, and what Sherrie pointed out there was, I'd like to just highlight it because it's not a given. The soft side of the education that Sesame brings and the infrastructure, it's one thing to tell a kid they should wash their hands, but if they don't have a way to do it, if the school doesn't have hand washing, and that happens all too often, as NGOs we're guilty of that, but this program emphasizes and makes sure that when we bring the Sesame Street program in, we've done the upgrading of the schools. In fact, we have a goal to reach 5 million children with upgraded schools, with latrines, with water on premises, with hand washing in them. So that's really critical to be able to combine them, and because of this partnership we can.
And listen, in one way this was groundbreaking for me is I always thought the reason we could have Elmo teach you to eat your vegetables or whatever was because Elmo was so popular and they saw him on TV on Sesame Street. Raya is reaching children. They don't have broadcasts. They're not seeing Sesame Street, but these characters are so appealing. And so even where we're creating new video content, again, print and video using every means possible, they are so effective at engaging children, at teaching children, and changing attitudes. It's as important to reach young boys about empowering girls as it is, helping those girls see their potential.
I like the point that Sherrie made about 1 + 1 = 3 in this case. And it seems to me kind of intuitively right that if girls are spending less time fetching water, then they're able to go to school, then they can get an education, they're going to earn more money and have more of a voice in household decision making in ways that will probably mean more investments in the human capital of their children a generation later, and so on. But to what extent does this, in making these investments, do you run into cultural barriers and men saying, who are going to be the village elders, et cetera, saying, oh, you shouldn't spend the marginal dollar on water, you should spend it on building a place for the men to hang out or whatever it may be. Do you run into these issues, and how should we think about those?
That's why this third piece, water, economic empowerment, and mindset change are so critical. And that's one of the reasons we partner with Bethany and Emory is to understand those key points of where we need to emphasize cultural, social changes. I don't know if you want to add to that, Bethany.
You can't do empowerment work without engaging men. Just like you can't do it without engaging, starting with boys is really critical. Thinking about menstruation, my daughter's 8, and we've started reading a menstruation book with her, and she read it out loud with my 6-year-old son there, to me, which was really, really important. Because they need to understand these challenges, or not challenges, just the normalcy of human bodies. And so in terms of men, it's absolutely critical because they will feel threatened by the idea of a strong woman. The idea can feel like, oh, that's a replacement for me, unless you're doing it appropriately and have the ability to do what Greg was talking about, sort of say and say that, this is us coming up together. If you make money, this is good for us, for you, for us, for our community, instead of making it feel like a threat. So the attitudes are really important.
Well, no, I'm sorry, but I was going to say, Nick, one of the other things that I think is so, can be so rewarding is that we see instances where fathers are changing their minds about including daughters. I think that part of the reason is Sesame is non-threatening. When you're creating content that's essentially for children and yet adults have access, it's an incredible way to plant that seed without saying, you should do this. And we've seen incredible data on changing adult males' minds about the issues affecting young children, their daughters and going to school, and boys in saying they think it is okay for girls to be in school and have different roles and responsibilities. That's pretty powerful.
And I was just going to say, to your point, I was just recently in Samburu, and a man had gone through the training, told me just that. He said, I like that our family has a higher income, and he told me something really touching. It's like, now we have enough money to feed our family, and we didn't have that before.
That's great.
I've got to say that this week, UN Week, I've been running around the UN, and the topics have been Gaza and Ukraine and Sudan and climate change, and much of it has been kind of depressing. And to hear your talk has been utterly inspiring. Greg, I want to hand it over to you. I think you want to introduce a video. We have show and tell as well. And I think you have a video to share.
We do, and the final sentence here is, for me, empowerment is when women and girls are not only able to think about making positive choices, but they're making them, choices they could not even dream of before. And that's what our Strong Women, Strong World Beyond Access program is doing. We have a very short video to show you about the impact we're having in Kenya. Thank you, Nick. Thank you,
Thank you
Sherrie.
so
Thank
much.
you.
Bravo. Well, thank you for coming. Please join me in thanking our panel for their comments today and even more for their work on these issues. Thank you all.
Thank you.